Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. This is Katherine D. Graham, USA Today best-selling dark fantasy author, Reedsy reviewer, and book editor. And I'm so excited that you are here to kick off the very first Indie Fantasy Friday review report of summer 2023. So, hey, good to see you on. If you have read any of these books, I'd love to hear what you thought of them in the comments. The four you see on the screen here are the four I'm going to talk about today. Before I get started, though, announcing my reviews, take my face off the screen so you can see. I just want to say this is a 100% on unsponsored video. None of the authors gave me anything in exchange for doing this video review. A couple of the books today are through Reedsy Discovery, and those did give a free ARC copy for the Reedsy review. However, I have personally gone and purchased every single one of these books, including those from Reedsy. So there's that. Then I just want to dive in and explain a little bit about my rating scale. So I personally use the Reedsy Discovery rating scale. This is a rating scale that I have to use on books that I review for Reedsy, but I've decided just to use it in everything because it makes so much sense to me. The first is a 1-star. That is a skip it. I hardly ever give a book a 1-star. I hardly ever DNF a book. The only time I DNF or do not finish a book is when there are so many technical editing, formatting issues that the book is not readable the way it is. So 1-stars are reserved for ones that are literally riddled with typos, have no real formatting, things like that, that I actually finished despite that. So you will see very, very few of those at any point in this YouTube series. 2-star is it's not for me, but it might be for someone else. And I try to be objective in my reviews, not based on how I personally like the book as much as how well it demonstrates what the book should be for that specific genre. So as a developmental editor who specializes in fantasy with over 10 years of experience doing this, that's sort of my forte, is saying, yeah, it might not be for me, but it could be for you. A 3-star review is worth reading. This is the average that most of the books I review get, either that or a 4, which is that I loved it. Worth reading means the book is good. That might have a couple small flaws, but it's still worth reading. 4 is loved it. I loved almost everything about it. Maybe a couple things could have been done better. And a 5 is a must read. These are hardly ever given out by me. So if you do get one, congratulations. I think I average 20 to 30 max 5-star reviews a year out of the hundreds of books that I read for fun, not including the ones that I edit. So with that, we're going to dive right in. And if you're joining because you saw through the newsletter that there's going to be a giveaway, there's going to be a giveaway. At the end of this video, we will be pulling 4 winners to win a paperback copy. Each winner will receive 1 paperback copy of one of the 4 books that I'm reviewing today. So stay with me to the end. And if you're joining and you want to leave comments, I can pull them up on the screen. So feel free to drop them here on YouTube. The first book I'm going to talk about today is Master of Music. This is a mythological / epic feeling fantasy, although there are sort of some impressions that it could be a historic sort of inspiration from our world. And it is really one of the first whole family fantasy reads that I have read in a very long time. The main character is young. He starts the book as 11. He's 12 when the book ends. And the main bond in the book is found family between the master bard, who would become the main character's father figure in the book, and the love that they have for each other. This book blew me away, and it got the very first 5-star review of the entire summer for my book reads. So Master of Music is by Marla Himeda, and it was just stunning from the very beginning. I could imagine myself being in that world with those characters. There were moments where I was just on the edge of my seat and realized I hadn't breathed in a while. It was so good, and the tension is so great. And it's definitely set up to be a series where you grow sort of alongside this character. But if you are someone who loves character-driven stories, who wants stories that have realistic elements to them where the hero's life isn't perfect and easy, but is done in a way that maybe if you do have younger readers in your life that you want to share it with, they could enjoy as well, then this would be a great book for them. Second up today, we have Fairy Door. This is one of the books that I picked up from Spiffbo9, the self-published fantasy blog off that is going on right now, organized by Mark Lawrence. This is by V.A. Boston, and it's a YA portal / epic fantasy with fairy tale influences. This is a beautiful cover. It grabbed me right away because of the cover. But what I loved about it was, despite the fact that it's about fairies and fae and about a very independent female main character, or FMC, really, it's a romance-free book. The main storyline follows the main character and an enchanted ancient instrument as they travel through on a quest, these different portals in and out of the fairy world and the mortal world, and trying to collect keys that are going to ultimately give her an opportunity to try to undo a mistake she makes at the beginning of the book. It was not very straightforward how the plot was going to end in the end of the book, and I was pleasantly surprised by the twist that the end takes. This one is a standalone, or at least it can be read as a standalone. There was nothing that left me thinking that there was going to be another book in this series. So if you're a fantasy lover who prefers books that are standalone, this might be good for you. And it was also a relatively short read. So in the end, despite the really original premise, I did decide to give Fairy Door a 3.5-star review, rounding up to 4 stars on Goodreads and BookBub. Mostly because this book was still very rough and raw in some places, and maybe it was just the version that I got off of Amazon. But it looked like some sentences had gotten cut off in a couple times, and then there were a couple places where the plot left me wondering if it had been overlooked, like a minor plot hole, but the story as a whole was so good that even with those things in it, I still feel like it is that 3-star worth reading novel, and the vivid storytelling in parts of it definitely bumps it up to that 3.5. There's some very dialogue heavy scenes here and there that slow it down a couple times, but aside from that, this is a really strong starter for the Spiffbo season. Next up, we have Panthera. Panthera is also a mythological aspect of an epic fantasy. However, it is dark, and I don't think I was prepared for quite how dark this book was. It is sort of the opposite of the Master of Music that we saw at the beginning, where it's that wholesome, whole family, anybody could read this. There are a lot of content points in Panthera that the author alludes to by saying in Amazon's description that there's, here on the cover, it's a medieval realm of beauty, brutality, and magic, and that brutality is very evident. So if you're not a fan of sort of brutal themes, which could involve minors, it could involve abusive parents and things like that, then this might be one that you would want to skip over. But if you want to see the raw, real side of humanity and how humanity would react with mystical, ancient, basically god and goddess figures, and how that changes their life, then Panthera is actually a very deep character-focused story, and I felt very strongly for those characters. It has a very diverse, multi-POV type setup. You meet one character in the beginning, and that changes as you go along. And it is the first in a series. It has a much more pronounced potential cliffhanger ending, but there's another book already out. So if you're interested in this one, you don't have to wait to read book 2. Overall, because of some editing, really, notes about it, and a couple scenes that I felt were perhaps more dark than they had to be to get the point of the plot across, I did give this one a 3.5 star. I still think it's definitely worth reading, and I truly agonized about whether to give this a full 4 star or not. I just feel like maybe with one more push through to resolve a couple open-ended things that are introduced earlier in the story, it would have been just a solid 4 or 5. So yeah, definitely excited for this to have been my first dark fantasy read of the year. Moving on, we have another Reedsy Discovery read. This one is The Hero's Descent. It's a mythological / epic fantasy with some court intrigue thrown in, but not in the way you think. They have an entirely new, inventive, creative race that I would equate, for those who are not reading this book before or haven't read this book before, to being like fae or fairy. But they're posed as the creatures of light, essentially. And then there are the beings who consider themselves the race of darkness. And these mythological races, powerful and ancient races, are being witch hunted. And literally, I mean, the beginning of the book opens with a burning at a stake of 2 siblings. And it's dark, but it's got so much hope built into it that I would almost call this one a noble bright fantasy, even though it has some very, very dark themes at times. And it's not going to leave you with the full happily ever after you necessarily wanted. It would definitely leave you wanting more. So this one I gave a 4-star review. This is The Hero's Descent by L.M. Santana. I think it's a very strong story. I loved it. I loved the dark elements with it and how it contrasts to the hope that these oppressed people still have, their ability to accept their own flaws and their own weaknesses, and some of them grow through them and some of them give in to them. It just made it so realistic, and just loved all of that. So I think the only reason this was not a 5-star review for me was ultimately a couple smaller plot details that were a little confusing to me at the end. There's some name change things in this book, and I was left a little confused about who is who, but you'll explain why, or you'll understand why that is if you pick it up and read through it. So ultimately, I feel like all 4 of these books are worth reading. It has been so much fun reading them. And I think, going to do our drawing in just a minute. Kevin's on. Hey, Kevin, 5 stars for Master Music. Awesome. Yes, it was great. Congratulations, Marla. Next week, before we get into what we're doing with our giveaway and announcing our winners, next week I will be doing 4 more indie fantasy books. A few of them, 3 of them, I think, are Spiffbo 9 entrants, Carol Carmen's Twice Time, Zach Argyle's Voice of War, J.D. Brink's Dragon Slayers Guild, and K.E. Andrews' Hills of Heather and Bone, which I've heard great things about. If you're an author watching this and you want to submit your book for consideration for one of these, you can drop it in the comments either on the replay or here on the live. And I'm always looking to expand my TBR. And if you're a reader and you've read any of these, or you know a book that I have to read, if it's sci-fi or fantasy, I'd love to give it a try. All right, with that, it is time to pull up the Wheel of Names. If you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, you can definitely do that at www.katherinedgraham.com. But my newsletter subscribers received an offer to put their name in today to win the 4 paperback books. And if you're watching live and you are a newsletter subscriber, let us know which one you wanted. Let's see. Hopefully that should pull it up so we can have our wheel going here. All right, this is my first time doing a giveaway on a live, so bear with me. Can everybody see the wheel okay? All right. Awesome. Okay, here we go. We're going to spin the wheel. So for our first winner, we have Deborah G. Congratulations, Deborah. If you have requested to enter this giveaway, then I know which book was your preference. And I will be giving those out in first come, first drawn order. But here we go. So that's book number 1 of 4. Moving on, we have Gamelin. Congratulations. You're our second winner for a paperback from this 4 or group of 4. All right. Third person. Jackie T. Congratulations. There were 48 different entrants on this one, too. So thank you for everybody who participated. Made for quite some competition here. And the very last one we have today is Ashley. Congratulations, Ashley. So, yes, I will be in touch with all of the winners to get your books set up to mail to you. And again, I do giveaways frequently through my newsletter. So, if you want to stay in touch with not only my writing news as an author, but also books from other indie authors, like on these live streams and also giveaways, you can definitely just give me a follow there. Make sure to tune back in for next week. And if you would like to check out my work, you can grab a copy of my own dark fantasy, The Godmother, for free exclusively on my website when you sign up for that email list. So that's www.katherinedgraham.com. The Godmother is the prequel of my upcoming Starfire Express series, and it is dark. It's going to have a very bitter element to the end. So if you're looking for a happily ever after read, I suggest you hop over to The Vow That Twisted Fate when it re-releases on Sunday, July 9th. Thank you all for being here, and I will catch you all on the next one.